Imagine a monster lurking in the shadows of your community, preying on the vulnerable, and leaving a trail of bodies that spans decades. Imagine this killer escaping justice for so long that he becomes a ghost story, a terrifying whisper. This is the chilling reality of Gary Ridgway, the notorious Green River Killer. Today, we're going to unravel the horrifying saga of Gary Ridgway. We'll delve into his seemingly ordinary life, the methodical and brutal pattern of his crimes, the agonizingly long hunt to identify him, and how he was finally brought to justice, becoming one of America's most prolific serial killers. It's a story of profound loss, relentless investigation, and the slow, grinding triumph of forensic science. Gary Leon Ridgway was born on February 18, 1949, in Salt Lake City, Utah, but spent most of his life in the Seattle area, specifically in Auburn, Washington. He was the middle of three sons. His childhood was marked by a domineering mother and a more passive father. This dynamic reportedly led to a strained relationship with his mother, who was known to be overprotective and controlling. Even as a child, Ridgway exhibited troubling behaviors. He wet the bed until his teens and had a fascination with choking animals. There were reports of him strangling pigeons and other small creatures, a chilling precursor to his later methods. He also reportedly tried to stab a boy with a knife when he was just 13. During his adolescence, Ridgway struggled socially and academically, though he managed to graduate from high school. He enlisted in the U.S. Navy in 1969, serving during the Vietnam War aboard a tender ship. While in the Navy, he had several run-ins with military police, including an arrest for public indecency. He was honorably discharged in 1971. After his military service, Ridgway returned to Washington. He married 3 times over his life. His first marriage was in 1970, and his second in 1973, producing a son. These relationships were often tumultuous, marked by his possessiveness and unusual sexual demands, which included a preference for choking during sex. For over 3 decades, Gary Ridgway worked as a truck painter at Kenworth Truck Company in Renton, Washington. He was described by coworkers as quiet, meticulous, and sometimes odd, but otherwise unremarkable. This seemingly mundane job provided him with a stable routine and an alibi, allowing him to blend seamlessly into the working-class fabric of the community. Ridgway developed a particular obsession with prostitutes and runaways, especially those frequenting Pacific Highway South in King County. He viewed them as easy targets, less likely to be reported missing or to have their disappearances rigorously investigated due to their transient lifestyles and often marginalized social status. He later admitted to police that he hated most of them, but continued to seek them out. While the exact moment of his shift from dark fantasies to violent action is unclear, by the early 1980s, Ridgway's deeply disturbed desires had fully manifested. He had honed a method of operation, targeting vulnerable women and exploiting their circumstances, believing he would never be caught. The area around the Green River in King County became his hunting ground, giving him his infamous moniker. The isolated, wooded areas in proximity to major highways provided perfect conditions for abductions and the disposal of bodies. The official timeline of the Green River Killer spree began in July 1982 with the disappearance of Wendy Caulfield, age 16. Her body, along with those of 3 other young women, Deborah Bonner, Marcia Chapman, and Cynthia Hines, were discovered in the Green River in August 1982. Their discovery sent shockwaves through the community. In the following months and years, more bodies surfaced, primarily in or near the Green River. The victims were almost exclusively young women, many of them runaways or prostitutes, usually strangled. The bodies were often found in groups, left in remote, wooded areas, or near waterways. The sheer volume and chilling consistency of the murders led to the formation of the Green River Task Force in 1983. This multi-agency effort, spearheaded by King County Sheriff's Detective Dave Reichert, faced an unprecedented challenge. They had dozens of victims, few leads, and a killer who left minimal forensic evidence at the dump sites. A profound sense of fear gripped the Seattle area. Parents warned their children, especially daughters, about hitchhiking and talking to strangers. The task force struggled under immense public pressure as the killer continued to evade capture, seemingly taunting law enforcement with each new discovery. The murders continued throughout the 1980s, peaking in the early to mid-1980s, but continuing sporadically into the 1990s. Ridgway's methods remained consistent, targeting vulnerable women, engaging in sexual acts, strangling them, and then often returning to the bodies for days or even weeks afterward for further desecration. He often moved the bodies, sometimes multiple times, to throw off investigators. By the late 1980s, the official count of confirmed Green River victims was in the dozens, making it the largest unsolved serial murder case in American history at the time. The scale of the horror was almost incomprehensible, leaving families shattered and the community in a perpetual state of dread. Despite the intense investigation, Ridgway remained elusive. He was interviewed by detectives multiple times throughout the years, even taking polygraph tests, which he sometimes passed due to his ability to control his physiological responses. His name appeared on lists of suspects, but there was never enough concrete evidence to link him directly to the crimes. As the 1990s progressed, the science of DNA profiling began to revolutionize criminal investigations. While the task force had gathered countless pieces of evidence over the years, many samples were too degraded or too small for earlier forensic techniques. This new technology offered a glimmer of hope, turning cold cases into solvable puzzles. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, the Green River Task Force revisited old evidence with new eyes and new technology. They focused on semen samples found on several of the victims' bodies, which had been preserved but not definitively matched. In 2001, forensic scientists were able to extract a viable DNA profile from semen samples found on the bodies of 3 of the early victims: Marcia Chapman, Cynthia Hines, and Marie Malvar. This DNA profile was then entered into a national database. The breakthrough came when this profile matched a DNA sample from a saliva swab Gary Ridgway had given in 1987 during a previous interview, as well as an earlier hair sample. On November 30th, 2001, almost 20 years after the first bodies were discovered, Gary Ridgway was finally arrested at his workplace, Kenworth Truck Company. The news sent shockwaves through the nation. The quiet truck painter, the man who had lived among them for decades, was revealed to be the monster. Facing the death penalty, Ridgway agreed to a plea bargain in 2003. In exchange for immunity from the death penalty, he confessed to 48 murders, leading investigators to the remains of several previously unfound victims. This gruesome cooperation allowed grieving families to finally bring their loved ones home and provided closure to many of the long unsolved cases. Ridgway's confessions were methodical and chilling. He described his methods in disturbing detail, often with a flat effect, showing little emotion or remorse. He explained how he selected victims, where he killed them, and how he disposed of their bodies, often returning to the dump sites for days or weeks, sometimes moving the remains to avoid detection. Gary Ridgway was sentenced to 48 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, essentially 48 life sentences plus 10 years, ensuring he would never be released. He is currently incarcerated at the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla. Even after his conviction, investigators continued to work with Ridgway, trying to identify more victims. In 2011, he was charged with the murder of Rebecca Marrero, another victim identified through advanced DNA techniques, bringing his known victim count to 49. It is widely believed that his true victim count is even higher, possibly exceeding 70. The story of Gary Ridgway is not just about the numbers. It's about the countless lives he shattered. It's about the families who waited for decades, never knowing their loved one's fate. It's about the deep scars left on a community that lived under the shadow of a serial killer for far too long. The Green River Killer case profoundly changed how law enforcement handles serial murder investigations. It highlighted the critical importance of interagency cooperation, meticulous evidence collection and preservation, and the invaluable role of evolving forensic science, especially DNA technology, in solving cold cases. Ridgway's selection of victims also brought into stark relief the extreme vulnerability of marginalized populations, particularly prostitutes and runaways, who often fall through the cracks of society and whose disappearances may not be immediately or thoroughly investigated. It spurred greater awareness and efforts to protect these communities. Gary Ridgway, the quiet truck painter, serves as a chilling reminder that evil can reside in the most unexpected places, hidden in plain sight. His seemingly unremarkable demeanor masked a prolific and sadistic killer, illustrating how difficult it can be to identify such individuals, even when they are directly questioned. The story of the Green River Killer is a stark reminder of the dark side of humanity. What aspect of this case do you find most disturbing? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're interested in true crime stories and the pursuit of justice, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more.